thanks for joining our webinar this morning. My name's Nick Osborne. I'm a technical consultant. I've been working sort of in the IT and telecoms industry for about the last 20 years, and the last 10 years working at Koris and specialising in UC. What we sort of talking about today really is this subject, so bridging the gap between the enterprise cloud contact center and Microsoft Teams. So what I want to cover off is these sort of points. So we're going to have a quick intro, which is just to kind of remind you of what Microsoft Teams is, and then also what we would class as a enterprise cloud contact center. We're then going to talk about who Enghouse is and how they've worked with Microsoft. We're going to go through some of the functionality you can have with this cloud contact center, specifically with Microsoft Teams. Then look at the requirements that you need from an infrastructure point of view to be able to deploy this, and that leads nicely onto the options you have available to you for deployment. Then we'll look at how it works. So that's kind of call flows, how calls come into the contact center and get routed off to your agents. And then we'll do a live demo. So look at the real product so you can see it working in real life in effect. And then after that, just touch on some deployment considerations. So that's kind of things to bear in mind when looking to deploy this. And then we'll wrap up in the end with a summary and then some contact details on how to get in touch with us and to sort of open up further discussions about what we've looked at. So yeah, as an intro, really, what is Microsoft Teams? I'm pretty sure most people on the call will know what Microsoft Teams is, but there's a couple of points I wanted to pull out on that really, which is you know, in the last kind of sort of 4 or 5 months, we've seen a rapid growth, well, huge growth in Teams from kind of sort of 30 million users increase from March to April this year, and that's genuine daily active users, so people actually using the app, and it is it's Microsoft's collaboration tool and communication tool. So that is allowing you to do things like share your desktop, set up web conferences, do IM conversations, share files, create a shared workspace, collaborate on documents together. So it's got a lot of things there from a kind of collaboration point of view. It's also part of Microsoft's Office 365 suite. So it's included with most, pretty much all Microsoft Office or Microsoft 365 plans. And if you've got E3, then you've got some of the licensing towards using it for telephony. If you've got E5, then you've got the phone system license included. So depending on your Microsoft plan, you will already have Teams, and then also you may have some of the extra licensing on top to allow to do things like the phone system part of Teams. So as well as it being all this nice collaboration stuff, it's also a phone system. So we can use it to make and receive calls and set up hunt groups and stuff like that. So I think the phone system bit of it brings me on to how does this relate to a contact center, and I guess what is an enterprise cloud contact center. So in the context of the webinar we're doing today, these are the things I would say an enterprise cloud contact center should be. So it can be hosted and it should be highly available. It should support multiple interaction types. So that's voice, chat, email, maybe chat bots. It should also have rich reporting as well, so you can actually see what's going on in your contact center and then kind of tweak it to improve the contact center performance. So the product we use for that is EICC from Enghouse. So EICC is the contact center engine, which we're going to be looking at today. And alongside that, we've got QMS, or Quality Management Suite, which is the call recording side of it. So obviously a lot of contact centers have a requirement for call recording, whether it's for compliance or for training and that kind of stuff. So QMS is part of the portfolio and fits in nicely alongside EICC. So they're the two things that we're looking at really today: Teams and EICC as an enterprise cloud contact center. So how do well, I guess I wanted to give you a bit of background on Enghouse and how they've worked with Microsoft. So Enghouse have been a Microsoft Gold partner for a long time, and for at least the last 12 years, they've been a co-development partner with Microsoft. So what that means is they work alongside Microsoft. They can share labs. They're a member of the Microsoft TAP program as well, the Technology Adoption Program. So they get in really early on the development of new, in particular the communications products with Microsoft, to make sure they can build their tight integrations with their products and provide the users with a really sort of a clean experience when using the Microsoft Communications app alongside the Contact Center app. So that's gone all the way from back to OCS in 2007 through Link, Skype for Business, and now Teams. So with sort of Skype for Business was probably the real breakthrough from Microsoft and their kind of communications platform. So that's where there's been sort of the most deployments so far. So Enghouse have got over 600 individual customers using Skype for Business and EICC as their contact center platform. So they've been deploying that quite widely in the marketplace, you know, for the sort of last kind of five plus years, specifically on just even Skype for Business. And they often present alongside Microsoft at events like Aspire and Ignite as one of the kind of chosen contact center platforms. So where do we come into this as well? So Koris 365 IT, we're an Enghouse Gold partner. We're actually the company that brought Enghouse to the UK, kind of that sort of probably sort of 10, 12 years ago. We're also a Microsoft Gold partner. So those two bits place us well to kind of deploy these solutions together. So Teams alongside Enghouse. So we've kind of introduced you to a little bit into the enterprise contact center idea and what EICC is. So here I wanted to run through some of the functionality you can expect to have when using EICC, specifically with Microsoft Teams. So it'll handle multimedia for your contact center. So that's voice, things like web chat, email. It will provide presence information as well, so your contact center agents can see the availability of other agents and other people within your organization based on their team's presence. So it pulls that information in, which is quite important for agents when they're transferring calls, to be able to see the availability of the destination person. It has a web client with it, which is a really nice solution for rapid deployment for home workers. So very relevant in a lot of the challenges that businesses have been facing in the last few months around being able to get a contact center agent up and running really quickly. So there is and I'll show you this later, but there's a basic web client we can use instead of the full touchpoint client to enable people to handle voice calls quite quickly. And then another thing we can do is around AI chatbots. So they're starting to provide some really nice sort of, I guess, performance improvements within contact center or within the whole customer sort of contact journey. So things like external chatbots can handle things like taking away the load of booking appointments. So instead of somebody calling into a contact center to book an appointment, they can instead do it via a chatbot where they would say, I want to book an appointment, speak to, say, if it's a housing association, maybe I want to speak to a rent officer. So the chatbot can recognize that query, set up a booking process for that person just through a kind of a chat process, instead of having to involve an agent. Internally within contact centers, the bots can help with coaching agents as well. So they can, the voice engine can listen in on the call and potentially suggest answers to queries from the customer. Instead of the agent having to go off and search for it, the chatbot can suggest appropriate things to give to the customer. So that's a really interesting area at the moment. It's growing quite rapidly because of those kind of performance improvements, but it's never going to be a replacement for an agent. It just helps the agent to be a bit more efficient. So what else we've got from a functionality point of view? So call recording, really important in a lot of contact centers for whether it's compliance, as I said, or whether it's for training and things like sentiment analysis to see if somebody is getting a bit emotional on a call and if the supervisor needs to jump in. Rich reporting as well, essential really. You need to know what's going on in your contact center and things like you know, what's your busiest hour during the day. So okay, now I know I need to maybe look at bringing some more agents on in that time, or changing my overflow patterns to bring in some third line staff just to support calls during my busiest time to make sure I can hit my SLAs. And that's what rich reporting is there for, to give us that kind of granularity. Wall boards as well. We need, in a lot of contact centers, we want a wall board. So whether that's to motivate the team or provide visual indication for a supervisor about what's going on in the contact center, and also you know, we can do operator consoles. So we're talking all about contact centers today, but the same engine we're using as a contact center can also act as an operator console for you. So if you have that requirement as well, it's very easy for us to create a separate queue for maybe the main office reception, and they have a different application or different view of the application that's specifically for just handling operator style calls. So it's kind of a nice extra feature. We even have some customers that just use EICC as an operator console because it does a really good job for that. And I think lastly, CRM integration. So that's really potentially a really important feature as well, to integrate with whatever existing CRM apps you have to help with things like maybe if it's screen pops or putting up records, or just enabling to call from those apps. So there's really well established integration with major CRMs already with EICC, and also it can interact with any CRM through APIs as well. So they're the kind of things that we have available in EICC for Teams, really. So hopefully you can see from that, pretty much that's most features that we would require from a contact center. So yeah, moving on to requirements really. So what do I need to do all this nice contact center stuff? So I need Microsoft Teams if I'm going to run this on Teams. But so I need Microsoft Teams. Also, I need a phone system license for Microsoft Teams. So if I happen to have Office 365 E5, I've already got that covered. It's included within E5. If I have E3 or something else, then it's an add-on license that I can add into my licensing plan. But that's giving me my phone system. So underneath all of this, I need something to be able to talk on, which is Teams. So that's my phone system in there. I need some way to connect to the PSTN. So to get my calls into my contact center, I need some PSTN, so whether that's SIP or ISDN. I need an SBC as well, so a session border controller. That's the box that glues the PSTN into the contact center part of it. And if I'm, well, with using Teams for my voice part, I need to have direct routing configured for Teams as well. So there's a link or there's the URL there. I can send it over to anyone that wants it later. But we did a webinar a few weeks ago on specifically around direct routing for Teams, explaining what components you need for that and how we can help with that sort of deployment. So yeah, so we need Teams and we need some PSTN, and then we also need a contact center. So in this scenario, we're looking at EICC as the contact center product, and then we also, if we want call recording, we need a call recording solution. So that's Enghouse QMS. So they're the bits that make up the solution that we're looking at throughout this webinar. So how do I then deploy those things, those kind of components we just looked at on the previous slide? So I've got first option, if this is the route you want to take, it can be deployed on premises. So I appreciate we're talking about cloud contact centers, but for completeness, I want to kind of show you all the different ways this can be done. So we can deploy all that stuff on premises. So if you've got an existing SBC, we can use that depending on the model and type, or we can deploy one into your existing environment. We can use your existing PSTN services as well. So whether that's SIP or ISDN, or if not, we can also bring in SIP services to the on-premises environment. We can, or we would need to configure Microsoft Teams direct routing. So that's to give you the connectivity for the Teams PBX bit of it. And we can use existing VMware or Hyper-V environment to run the VMs we need for this deployment. So that's kind of first option. It can be deployed on premises. We can deploy it in a private cloud as well. So this is something we do regularly, hosting communication solutions for our customers. So we have everything set up to be able to deploy this in our existing hosted environment, and we can provide the PSTN connectivity in there. So making that a pure kind of cloud solution for you. Or it can be run in the public cloud. So Azure or AWS, we can put all of the stuff in the public cloud as well and connect the PSTN into that. But the key point with all of these is it really is best to keep it all in one location just to ensure performance. So to keep latency to a minimum, we want to keep all the bits that talk quite regularly to each other in one location. So on-prem, private cloud, or public cloud. So that was kind of where we can deploy it. So how does it actually work? What's happening when I call into my new contact center that's using Teams and EIC and stuff like that? How does the call flow work? So I kind of wanted to give you a couple of slides here just to go through this, and so you can see how our calls get into the contact center and what actually happens. So if I receive an inbound call, comes in across the PSTN, that call is going to come in on my SIP trunk or my PSTN service, and it's going to hit my SBC. So my SBC is going to have a bit of logic in it that's going to do a destination lookup to work out where it needs to send this call. So if the call was for the legacy PBX, whether that's Skype for Business, Cisco, Avaya, Mitel, or even a third-party contact center, we'll have a routing entry that says calls to that number, send them off to the legacy thing. If it's for Teams, then we'll have some other rules in there that say, okay, these are actually Teams DDIs. Send this off over Teams direct routing off to the Teams user to ring on their Teams client. Or if the call is for an EICC number, so a number associated to the contact center, we'll route it onto the contact center server. So once it's on the contact center server, we put the call into a conference on there, and we treat it and queue it. So that might be things like dropping the call into an IVR for the person to select some options, or for them to enter maybe some account details. It might be playing some music on hold or some queue announcements to say where they are in the queue. It might even be doing things like offering them a callback. So presenting an option throughout the messages to say, if you'd like to request a callback, press 1, and then the contact center can then finish the call and then assign a task to an agent to call that person back at a later date. So we're doing all that good contact center stuff at this point, and we're also looking for an agent to become available once we're kind of in the queuing side of it to send the call off to the agent. So once an agent's available, EICC is going to route the call to the user's Teams DDI, so the number that's been configured within Teams, the telephone number for that. That results in the call being routed off to the SBC, across Teams direct routing, and over to the Teams agent, or the Teams client, sorry, on the agent's machine. And then the client's going to ring and they're going to answer the call, and now they're connected to that customer through the contact center. So that's the call flow, really, how we get a call into the contact center and off to the agent to answer the call. So yeah, following on from that really is kind of a demo, I think, to show you what it looks like in real life, how we receive these calls into the contact center, and that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to grab my my client and show you what this looks like. So here we have my user. He's got his Touchpoint client running. So Touchpoint is the name of the agent application that runs on the agent's machines. So I've got Tony here. It says login to get queues. So he's not going to be presented any calls at the moment because he hasn't logged into the queues. So I'm going to log him in. I'm going to choose my option here to see what queues I can choose. So they have logging classes. So we might have different classes that control the delivery of those calls to the users, and those deliveries can have lots of things around priorities, escalation, overflows, and that kind of stuff. For my guy here, he's going to join the Contoso multimedia class, and he's going to go into phone, chat, and email queues because he wants to be able to be available for all these queues. So now I'm logged in. I can see my status on these queues has gone to green, so I'm available to take calls from those. And I've got another one down here that says the status is demand. So that's a type of queue where I can choose to demand a call to accept. So I pick them from the queue instead of having them pushed onto me. So yeah, let's look at call delivery. So I'm going to call my my queue here, and then we should see a call being presented to Tony. So Tony gets a pop-up down here offering him the call. I'm going to click to answer that. So Touchpoint pops up with the queue here. What we can see is I've got the caller's name. If it was in the contact list, I've got the telephone number in there. So I've got a little bit of information about the call here. I can, on the related tab, I can see when this person has called into the contact center previously and what agents have dealt with that person. So Tony's working away here, talking to this person, dealing with helping them out. And once he's finished the call, then it's a simple end call to complete that interaction. So once I finish the call, then I get dropped onto work time. So down here at the bottom, it's given me a little bit of after call work time to wrap up stuff. Maybe it's entering some data about it, but that's completely configurable. I've just set it for 15 seconds for the moment, but that can be longer. Also within here, I could have enforced Tony to enter some wrap up codes. So reason for the call maybe, or maybe entering a ticket ID from something I've logged in a service desk. But that's kind of, I can enforce that stuff to happen before then Tony is then available to take the next call. So yeah, that was simple. You know, I received a call, popped up in Teams, I answered it, Touchpoint popped up, showed me some information around the call, allowed me to deal with it and complete it, and then I'm now back available as an agent to take calls again. So one of the other types of delivery we've got is chat. So I will show you a chat session. So here's my my
sorry Nick, just one quick question. With the wrap-up codes, are you only limited to the agent, the team's presence type codes, or can you put in things like
tasks
management or other
totally
things?
configure. You can totally fill your boots on it. You can go as detailed as you want. I think so. Yeah, you could literally create hundreds of codes. You can also have free text codes as well. So that's where it might be used for like a.
We only have about a dozen.
Cool, but yeah, so yeah, absolutely, it's very customizable for the wrap-up codes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, so we're just looking here at web chat side of stuff. So imagine I'm a council service user, and I go onto the council website and I want to ask a question about council tax. So I've got my little chat box here. How can I help you? I'm going to enter my name and email address and start a chat. So over back on Tony's PC, he's been offered the call. So I'm going to hit accept on that. And so now we can see Tony is in a chat. I'm just going to bring these windows side by side so you can see what's going on. So Tony on the right is talking to Bob, and on the left we can see we've got the conversation started. So to save Tony a bit of time, he can send an initial greeting. So he doesn't actually have to type that. That picked up the caller's name and added in the agent's name and put it into the chat. So over here we can see, hi Bob, my name is Tony, how can I help you today? So maybe Bob wants to know about council tax. So Tony gets this chat in here, and his kind of supervisor's already done some work to configure up a load of pre-created phrases. He happens to have one in here that he knows is going to respond to this query. So he clicks the phrase, hits insert, and it puts the text into the box and hits send. And now that's sent that back to the chat. So that's potentially saved Tony quite a bit of time, because he knew what the query was, and he had the pre-canned kind of phrase to respond to it. So just a quick demo there of how it's easy to bring that web chat from a website into the contact center, deal with it in the contact center as a proper interaction, and then save a bit of time on the agent side by having these pre-created phrases. So I'm just going to finish that up, complete and close. Yep. And then that's going to close that down. And down here, you see I'm on work time again, in case I need to wrap anything up. Again, that's all customizable. And then shortly, I'm going to be available again to take calls. So that was a voice call and a chat call. Let's just look at email chat as well. So as I mentioned, I've got that on a demand delivery. It could be automatic as well. And with all these interaction types, I can choose how many of them I want a user to be able to handle at one time. So I could maybe say, actually, I think my users can handle two web chats at the same time. And I might even say, and they can handle an email at the same time. But I can choose how I want the person to be able to deal with different amounts of calls, or just one type of call at one time, if that's kind of the way you want the agents to work. I'm just going to request this email from the queue. So it offers it to me, and I'm going to accept it. And so in here, I've got my email. So somebody also asking about council tax again. So here I've got the query as the agent. I can read through this, and I can say, okay, well, I think this is something I can reply to. If it wasn't, I could transfer it back to another queue if it's come into the wrong queue. So that's come into the wrong email box in effect. But I'm going to reply to this. So click reply. I can type in here my reply, or I can do the same as before. I've got some already created phrases. So I'm going to go for this one here. I've got some, I know based on what the person was asking that I've got the right sort of template for it. So I can insert that in the message, and it drops the text in here. It's picked up the original sender's name. So hi, hello, Nick Osborne. So personalizes it a bit and puts my agent name in there as well. So if I'm happy with that, I can click send. That's sent the reply to the email. If I think that's it, then complete and close, and I've completed that interaction for the email chat. So now I'm back available to take calls. So they were kind of the agent side of stuff, the three sort of modes of delivery we looked at. Just the other part to touch on quickly on the agent side before we move on to some of the other features is I've got my call history in here, so I can see all my my interactions throughout the day. So I can go back into and view these emails, or view details of the call, or view the chat if I wanted to refer back to them. And that's my own sort of personal history. I've also got a nice little dashboard in here that shows me how I've been working today, how many calls I've taken, times on break and that sort of stuff, how many interactions I've had. So yeah, that's very quickly around the kind of agent side of the touchpoint client. Once I've finished my work, I can maybe choose to take a break. So maybe I want to go out quick back in 5 minutes, or maybe I want to go on lunch, and that will change my status so I don't take calls. Or I can go on work time. So maybe actually, I'm going to be in training for an undefined amount of time. So hit start work time, and now that's put me in training now. So I won't receive contact center calls with that. So I'm going to exit out of the full desktop client here, just to quickly show you the web client. So desktop client's rich multimedia interactions, lots of reporting stuff. I mentioned early on in the presentation that we've also got a web client for web-based only access. So here we are, we're within the Teams client, you can see here, and embedded within Teams, I've got an extra icon here for Touchpoint. So this is my web client for EICC. So in here I can log into a queue. And remember, this is voice only for at the moment. It's voice only for the web client. It's not the email and chat side of stuff. But I think that can be potentially quite adequate for a rapid kind of deployment of voice agents. So I'm logged in. If somebody calls into the queue, I'll see a pop-up in Teams asking me to answer the call. So I've got some basic info up here as well, showing me about the call. I can click to answer it, and now I'm connected to the call and I'm handling it within Teams. So a nice agent there that lets you handle calls within Teams natively without having to deploy an application to the end user. So this could be running on their home PC, for example, because all they need is Teams, and this bit here is all delivered through the web. Yeah, so quite neat there, I think, the web client. So I think the last bit I'm going to show you around client side stuff and using the Touchpoint application is just a quick view of the kind of supervisor side of stuff. So I've got Touchpoint running here on my PC as a supervisor, and I've got some extra stuff, in particular an extra tab in here that lets me see the agents. So as a supervisor, I can see what my agents are doing within the contact center. I don't need a separate application to do this. It's all within Touchpoint, and I can do stuff with the agents as well. So I can put them on work time. I could log them out. I could log them in if they were if I wanted to, and then I've got my queues. So as a supervisor, I can do things like change the mode of a queue. So maybe I wanted to put it into night service because we're going to do a load of training, or I might even have a certain mode for the queue called training that puts an announcement on the queue. But I've got all that control from here in a nice simple GUI instead of having to go onto a server and do loads of complicated stuff. So this is nice and simple for a supervisor to deal with as the kind of the contact center manager. And then you've got all the other things you'd expect in here about how my service level's doing, how many agents I've got available to handle calls, all that sort of good stuff for the supervisor view of things. So I think the last thing I was going to show you on the demo, now we've looked at the client sort of agent side and supervisor stuff, it's just looking quickly at reporting. So on the reporting side of stuff, we've got an absolute ton of reports available to the agents. I'm just going to show you one or two because it can get not very exciting very quickly, but let's look at a multimedia queue report first. So I'm just going to run this report, choose the last 10 days there, choose some queues to run it against. I want all the details about these calls, and I'm going to run it. So in here I can see that I've had some phone interactions, web chat interactions, email interactions, how many calls, how many abandoned, wait time, talk time, all the kind of good stuff that you would expect from a reporting side of things. Just briefly looking at let's look at the service level one as well. So I just run that quick. So if I want to see how my contact center is performing throughout the day, I'm going to run this in 60-minute intervals. And this is going to show me, so if this was a very busy contact center, you would see intervals for every hour of the working day. It only shows the sort of one or two here because this is my sort of demo environment. But this would let me see how I'm performing on certain times of the day. So maybe I know that or I want to see when I'm most busy. So this would show me that I'm actually most busy, say between 11 and 12, and that's when my service level is dropping below 100%. So that then allows me to plan to make sure I have some overflow agents available during that time, or maybe I make sure I don't book team meetings during that time. Just a bit of more intelligence around how the calls flow into my contact center to make sure that I've got the right amount of people available at the right time, and not necessarily employing more people, but just being a bit more or being well kind of armed with the right data to make decisions on how you should run the contact center. So loads of other reports in there. I'm not going to show you any more, but it generally covers pretty much everyone's reporting requirements. If there are things that you need in addition to here, then it's possible to run customized reporting. So we can provide it so you can have access to the SQL data within the environment to run your own reports, and some people use things like Power BI to dip into that as well. But generally, the data we have, or sorry, the reports available pretty much covers everyone's requirements, and they've been built up over sort of 10 plus years of people using the contact center product. So yeah, I hope that the demo that at least showed you kind of something real and something tangible instead of just some slides and pictures and stuff. The next bit I wanted to cover off was really deployment considerations. So what things to kind of think about when deploying EICC. So it can be parallel built alongside existing EICC if that's what you have, or we can deploy it in parallel alongside an existing third-party contact center. So that allows you to pilot it, test it, verify your queue flows and that sort of stuff. One of the features we've got coming soon, just later this year, is agent monitoring. So that what I mean by that is the ability to be able to listen in on an agent's call, maybe coach them through Whisper, so only the agent can hear you but not the customer, or even jump into the call and assist when an agent has said they want some help. So everything I've shown you now is what is available right now. Microsoft are working on the APIs that they offer to companies like Enghouse as software providers. So everyone is kind of a little bit at the mercy of what features Microsoft offer in their APIs. So we've got a load more features coming soon later this year as Microsoft release these further levels of integration. So we're only going to get more kind of more improved or new features coming along. But I think probably from what you saw so far on the demo and that there is a very rich sort of feature set already. Yeah, so just a couple of points I wanted to call out there, really to kind of watch out for when deploying this. Yeah, and I think really that's kind of everything I wanted to cover off today. So kind of to summarize what we've looked at, we looked at full multimedia contact center for Teams. You can hopefully see that you've got the benefit of Teams, so this collaboration and communications app that we're starting to see a really big uptake on. You can keep that and use that, but we can layer on top enterprise contact center for the people that need it. So we don't need to end up having two separate environments. We can have Teams as the overall telephony platform and layer on this rich contact center on top. The deployment, hopefully you saw, is kind of reasonably simple deployment and integration options that are quite flexible. We can put it completely in the cloud. We can run it alongside an existing contact center and PBX through the way that we have that SBC there for us. And I want to show you the full touchpoint client that's with the rich kind of feature set, as well as the web client for voice only there, to kind of see what you can do with your kind of deployment options. Yeah, and lastly, kind of, I thought it was important to highlight at the beginning about Enghouse's experience, our experience with Enghouse, and overall kind of the expertise that we've kind of got hopefully got available to you guys. So yeah, so really, I suppose that's everything I wanted to, as I said, wanted to cover off to kind of finish off really. If you have any questions, please get in touch. If you want to maybe look at a proof of concept, we can do that. If the bots were of interest, we can do some demonstrations on that, or we can go into a much more detailed EICC demo. So I think we probably only maybe spent 15-20 minutes on EICC. I didn't even touch the kind of the configuration side of it, and there's loads of things we can do, but hopefully it's given you a bit of a taster with that. And also, if you're interested in Microsoft Teams direct routing, that's something we can set up pilots for and help you through the deployment on that. So any questions on that stuff, drop me an email or speak to your Koris 365 IT account manager. So yeah, I hope that was helpful today. We'll have a recording